Would you like to know what new fuck me moment I had and the new thing that I now get to work on healing and addressing in my life? I thought you might. So, would you like to know what new fuck me moment I had and the new thing that I now get to work on healing and addressing in my life? I thought you might. So, this has been a reoccurring theme with jobs, with things in school, with my marriage, and that is this idea of having attention and focus put on what isn't there, what isn't being done, all the lack. This is so triggering because I'm doing it myself to other little things in my life. So like, you're not meeting your numbers, you're not doing this, you're not meeting my needs, you're not living up to my expectations, essentially. So then I realized that. So I was reading my cards tonight about this thing that keeps coming back around, and I'm just like, I'm sick of dealing with this. I can't keep feeling like this. Like, it makes no sense. Like, why am I constantly sitting in these confusions, these very polar things regarding this one thing in my life? And I'm just like, I can't with it. This is the lesson that I got to learn, which is to focus on what is there, not what isn't. Apparently, I did not learn that lesson. And if you remember, you were around back on my birthday, and I moved through that whole thing on my trip, and then at the end of my trip, and I was standing out over the overlook, and I'm like, so, because the same thing that happened on my birthday that caused me to move through all of that and come to that awareness is the exact same fucking thing that is causing me this issue, where apparently I have not applied and or actually healed those patterns because I did not realize the other places that it was in my life from other people still looking at what isn't there instead of focusing on what is and being appreciative of what is, expressing those gratitudes and all of that kind of stuff. So, lesson, I already learned my lacks and me focusing on the lacks in other areas of my life. So, I don't know how, but we're gonna move through this. I feel like this one is a lot less traumatic than the one that I just moved through about my parents and their inability to meet my needs and then being resentful when they were meeting my needs and all that stuff. I feel like it's a lot less on the scale of trauma and shadowy stuff that I have to work through. Like, this is a very minor thing compared to that. Like, focusing on lack beliefs is a lot less on the scale than the ability to accept love and all of the trauma related to that we already talked about. So, how do we focus on what is there instead of what isn't, and how do we heal this so that moving forward and going into a conscious partnership, I'm not bringing these old traumas from my previous marriage and the way that I was raised and just me as a human who's learning and growing. How do I heal that, or at least be conscious enough to recognize that patterns and redirect them? Answer is simple. Gratitude. So I had stopped my gratitude practice, and I'm pretty sure this is why I had started it. And this is why these processes, they may serve for a while and then not serve and then come back. So obviously that gratitude practice where I was intentionally doing blessings, gratitudes and blessings, is something that I need to readdress. Because for the most part, the areas in which I am hyper focused on the lack is in terms of relationships, and not so much things like finances or any of that. Like, I pretty much have those ones in a good peripheral understanding. But when it comes to relationships, hyper focusing on what isn't there is an issue. And as I say it, I'm like, yeah, there's probably some stuff in my childhood that I do need to address there. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is some heavy shit. But the simplest way to move through it and to put those processes to, because we have the awareness, we've had the awareness, but to keep building those new habits is through gratitude practice. So this new season that we're entering, I guess we're going to focus on these ideas of lack limiting beliefs, focusing on what is there rather than what isn't, and gratitude, ground. Everything's interconnected. Everything helps us gain deeper awarenesses within ourselves and begin to heal those patterns and create new patterns and new patterns of belief. So, lessening and release. More or less, that is what I will be focusing on. So, those elements and those themes directly translate to pretty much everything. So, we will continue to explore these processes through breathwork and movement and mindfulness and gratitude practices and sound therapy and tarot and everything else, because Katrina and everyone else. Focus on what is there. Focus on what they are doing, how they are showing up. Don't put any attention on the lack. The lack means nothing. The effort and the actions that are being put in place that are positive are the things that you need to focus on. Because the more you focus on them, the more those will happen. And the more you'll realize that that is a true representation, and the lack that is there isn't anything at all. It's really an empty cup. Like, it's nothing. And those lack limiting beliefs were probably something formed in your childhood when you were just reacting to your environment, reacting to the situation where you didn't have the mental, emotional capacity to understand what was going on, and you formed those beliefs. So, focus on the positive, focus on the healthy, focus on what is there, what is being done, what you do have. Show appreciation for those things, express gratitude for those things, and bless those